It was a lifesaver for me. My mom and dad were divorced when I was 2. My mother was an alcoholic. My family, my aunts and uncles, it was always in turmoil. There was a lot of arguing and a lot of cussing and fussing and lying and cheating and stealing, and I didn't have a good upbringing in terms of how to respect yourself or how to love anybody or how to be loved. And at the Brigade, I was treated with respect.
I got involved with the Boys and Girls Club since I was about 8 years old. I'm a club kid. I grew up in the same neighborhood as Community Boys and Girls Club, and things were rough, not just personally, but things were rough in our neighborhood. There was always a lot of drug activity. We definitely had some different role models to look up to, and some of them weren't the best. But the club was 100%, and it's so cliche to say it, it was definitely a safe place for kids, because at one time that was the slogan, a safe place for kids. And it was a safe place for us. It was like nothing went on in the club that was dangerous. When
I walked in there, I felt like somebody. I didn't have an identity at home per se. It wasn't, being a Chadwick didn't mean a damn thing. But being a member of the Brigade meant a lot to me.
I would say my personal experiences. Personally, I was not a club kid, and wasn't fortunate enough to have the opportunity to join the Boys and Girls Club. And understanding, a father myself, of how important it is to have role models and mentors and just people that are just there for you, how important that is in a child's life or a young adult's life as they're developing their own ways. So I felt it necessary, along with my personal kids, and to reach out to the community because the community needed it.
I was invited by Rick Sears, who was the CEO of Brigade Boys and Girls Club, to come and take a tour of Brigade. And I didn't really know much about Brigade, but Rick was a friend of mine, and in respect for him, I took the tour. So went through the facilities, and at the end of the tour, I was hooked. I got out into the parking lot, and I called my wife. I was crying, literally. I came down and just said, "We got to help these kids," and I was hooked immediately.
When a person that invests in you, that's not part of the normal education system, that sees or maybe reiterating things that you've heard from your teachers and counselors in the public school system, and you're also hearing it at home, and they're re-emphasizing it, but none of them have talked to one another. That's a powerful impact on a child, and it brings forward that continuity of the old African proverb of "it takes a village." So in this case, you don't want this piece of the village missing. You will not like the end result.
Right now, about 10% of the kids that get out of schools in and around this area are in after-school program. That number is way too low. We want to grow, and we want to raise those numbers so that it will be impactful to our environment and our community. There are a lot of things going on in and around, other influence. We want to be that influencer. We want to be that change agent that makes that difference in that child's life. And I go back to being that safe haven. How we get there through communications, open communications. We get there through transparency. We get there through mutual respect of what we're doing and why we're doing it. And always keeping a focus on the kids. They're our number one asset and our resource for the future.
During COVID, 3 board members from each of the 2 clubs met on the porch of my house out on a farm in Brunswick County, and we talked about moving forward toward unification, or at least exploring it. And we decided right then and there that if we didn't trust each other, we shouldn't do it.
Historically, when we look at it, we have to have the uncomfortable conversation about why were there two clubs.
So this community's got a lot of history, it's got a lot of hurt, it's got a lot of triumphs. I remember when I initially applied to the board. Now, before I apply to any board or work with any organization, I always go into the, looking into the history of it. And one of the first questions I had as being an outsider, why two clubs? Right? I got the history behind that. As a DEI consultant and as a person that is in the space of diversity, equity, and inclusion, it saddened me.
My mom was a Williston graduate. She graduated in 1964 from Williston High School. And during that time, there was, of course, segregation. That was happening. So she went to the all-black school. So even before then, in the 40s, when our club was, conceptualized, we weren't allowed there. And so there were two clubs. It was Brigade and it was Community. And we always felt, growing up, that was the white club and we were the black club. And we were good at what we did and Brigade was good at what they did. I didn't feel any hate or animosity. It was just community. That was my world that I lived in. So I just knew community. That's where I grew up. So of course, that's where I'm going.
25 or 30 years ago, the gentleman who was the grandchild of the founder of the Brigade came to me knowing that I had also served on the Community Boys and Girls Club and asked me about the possibility of getting these two clubs together. And I had both Walker Taylor Jr., who was a gentleman from here, and Dan Cameron, who was chair of the Community Boys and Girls Club, meet in my office down on Princess Street and talk about the possibility. But Dan went back to his board, and his board was not ready to start those conversations. But this effort goes back a long way, and there have been various attempts through the years by various leaders of the clubs, and they've just fallen short.
But then you fast forward, and you take the top. If we were able to take the top off of the club and look in, it is the same kids in both clubs. It's the same dynamics, it's the same demos. It might be slightly different here or there, but at that time there's not a white club and there's not a black club. There's a club, there's two clubs that serves the same demos, and that's what we're looking at.
The North Side community has very little faith in the white leaders of this town and community because of the things that have gone on in the past, because of the merger of the schools when the Williston was closed down and was no longer a high school, and they had no say in that happening. And then the hospital came along, same sort of thing. The community hospital was torn down while part of the James Walker stayed in place, and they had no say in that. And that's one of the things we wanted to do when we merged these two clubs together is the leaders of the Community Boys and Girls Club will have equal say in the new organization. They'll be equally represented on the board. So they're going to be part of what goes forward, which is both of them together. So I think that was really important, and for lots of good reasons. They are afraid that here we go again. Somebody's going to come in and take over something that means a lot to us in our neighborhood and do something different with it, and we don't have any say about it. And I can understand completely why they feel that way.
Historically, I think a lot of people in our community feel that, oh my God, y'all sold the club. And I'm like, no, we didn't sell the club. I think we both got together to sit down, which I think was historic for us, for two boards to sit down and talk about what can we do to serve more kids? What can we do to be more strategic and receive more resources and funding to help the kids in all the communities that we have and be available, not just here, not just in Wilmington, but maybe across the bridge in Brunswick County or Columbus County and Onslow County. What can we do to help more children in Southeastern North Carolina? And I think that was our big thing.
I voiced my opinion very strongly that it needed to happen, and it also needed to happen from the standpoint of healing the community. Right? You bring in two clubs together that have been, one was created for a particular reason, and then another one was told, well, if you all want one, go on the other side of town and make that predominant in your neighborhood. And now you have the opportunity in the 21st century to make all of that better. Not necessarily go away, but better. better for the community, better for those that might want to invest in programs like ours, better for the children to get exposed to a more inclusive environment between all of the clubs in this area. So it became a primary focus of the board, which I supported wholeheartedly.
As we send our children out into the world, we have to arm them to live in a diverse society, good, bad, and indifferent. Does that mean you don't advocate for change? No, it doesn't mean that at all. But you have to recognize that everybody marches to the beat of their own drum, and how do you navigate that? And how do you achieve in spite of or because of that? And we want to arm our children with that, but we don't want them to sacrifice their culture. You know, take yourself wherever you go and feel confident and proud of that, absolutely, but recognize that there are different people. And we've got to come out of our silos at some point. That's progress, and that's advancement, and it has to happen.
At first, I will be honest, I was that community. I was that guy that was like, nope, we don't need to do that. I felt that way. I felt, why do we need them? And I think there was other, people in Brigade the same way, because it's been that for years and years and years. But what better time than now? I don't think anyone said now's the time. I don't think anyone said we should do it right now. I think it was just a conversation that turned into a snowball of, hey, how can we even do this? How can we help? How can we unify to help everyone and everyone do well?
But by the end of the meal, we looked at each other and we said, we trust each other. Let's keep working. And that was almost 2 years ago. And over the past 2 years, we've met many times to do this. And we kept telling ourselves, let's not do this fast. Let's do this well. And it's been difficult at times. It's been challenging. And we've worked real hard to find a solution that provides an equal unification.
We wanted to make sure that that we discuss the uncomfortableness, that we have that conversation, and that we just not give away, because our community, in my community, we feel like we have lost so many things that were kept historical, that kept us who we are. And we're not losing the identity, we're not losing the concept of what community was and is still to this day, and who have come through those doors. We're not losing any of that, but hopefully we're enhancing it and we're adding more to it. And I'm pretty much excited about it.
We're all putting our assets in one pot, and it's equal at that point. We set it up so we have an equal number of board members from each club serving on the unified club, starting on the date it becomes unified. Equal number of officers from each club. So it's taken some thought. We got some great input from the community at town halls. We've got some great input from religious and educational and government and community leaders throughout the process. And now we feel like we have a solution that's going to be good for the kids going forward, the kids we serve now and the kids we should serve in the community that we don't currently serve, and that will honor, at the same point, the history and the cultures of the two clubs, going forward.
Sometimes it's not about just the high-profile people that go through here. There are people still here in the community that are still impacting the kids, that the kids see and the kids can look up to, and have those aspirations to go to college, to be a little more than what they can see here, maybe in their communities, in and around their families. And those are the opportunities that we have to provide, and those are the opportunities that break those cycles, that allow these kids to be whatever they want to, that their futures are just limitless when you think about it. And if you can tie that back to a celebrity that has gone through here, or someone within the community that has gone here, that's great. But we want to instill in that child that sense of pride and that sense of purpose so that they have that drive and they make their own future and they become that greatness that they so admire.